Please welcome Head of the Department of Justice's Civil Rights Division, Vanita Gupta. Here to lead the conversation, NPR's Carrie Johnson.
Vanita, when you joined the Civil Rights Division as its leader, did you anticipate LGBTQ issues being a significant part of your legacy?
I think I joined the Civil Rights Division in October of 2014 at a time where there had been such a transformation in the country, kind of socially and culturally around LGBTQ issues. And, I had a sense of the importance of the moment that we were in. There were pending decisions in the Supreme Court around gay marriage and the like. And so I had some sense of it, but I will tell you, I don't think that I could have imagined quite the trajectory that we've taken in the last couple of years, not just on kind of the L and the G parts of the LGBT issue, but really on some of the transgender rights that we have been working and advancing on in the last couple of years.
Yeah, so among them, the most significant, the filing of a lawsuit against the North Carolina law HB2, commonly known as the bathroom bill. I understand you don't quite like that term, though.
I don't like the bathroom bill, and I know that the media sometimes, and not just the media, but the public will sometimes use that phrasing as for shorthand. But to me, that bill really, that phrasing really trivializes what these bills are about around the country. They are fundamentally about people's dignity and the dignity to be who people can be, who they are, who they want to be, and so to call it a bathroom bill really trivializes to me what this is all fundamentally about. And it's why when I had the incredible honor of standing on the stage next to the Attorney General the day that we announced that litigation, probably one of the most electrifying days of my tenure at the Department of Justice, it was really important for us to kind of break down a lot of the myths and stereotypes and the lack of awareness. This litigation is not just about the legal positions that the Department of Justice is taking. It's about human beings. It's about men and women and boys and girls who are who have every right to have the dignity that they deserve in our country.
And this is in part stemming from the decision of this administration to expand Title IX to include transgender students in educational settings. How heavy a lift was that? What were the discussions and communications like within the administration about that?
So, I can't get into the internal kind of deliberations at the Justice Department, but I think what has been important about this Justice Department has been that we have been guided by the values that are embodied in our Constitution at every turn, whether it's on issues of policing and criminal justice reform, whether it's on issues of LGBT rights, whether it's on issues that for a long time the Justice Department may have taken one stance on. It's an understanding that the Constitution means things for, and oftentimes gets most tested in the most vulnerable and marginalized communities that exist amongst us. And so that is when we need to rise to the challenge and ensure that our federal civil rights laws are actually meeting everyone's demand for dignity in this country. That is what makes this country so great. And so it has been important for the Justice Department to stand up and to stand proud and to stand loudly on these issues at a time where I think it's been, the eyes of the country are on them.
There's a sense too that that these issues motivate you. Your motivation stems from personal experience and things in your own background. What has been the inspiration for you on these issues?
I think some of it is personal, probably, and different things, happen in people's lives. I have a gay sister. She's came out at a high school. I have immigrant parents. They had to travel their own journey through all of this. But look, these issues are much greater to me than just about kind of my personal life and my personal experiences. Carrie, you know this because you've been covering some of the work that I did before the Justice Department. But 15 years ago, I was working on criminal justice reform issues where the right and the left had largely ignored these issues for a very long time, and people weren't paying attention to what was happening in our criminal justice system. The trajectory was in a complete opposite direction of where it appears to be right now. And on LGBT rights issues for decades, for centuries, this country has had a very painful and imperfect kind of quest for equality and progress on these issues, as well as on racial justice issues and so many others. And I am a civil rights lawyer because I am somebody who believes in hope and in the kind of imperfect and yet unyielding quest for justice and dignity for everyone in this country. And I will tell you, this work is never anything but upstream, even in the best of times. And I think that we are, certainly in a time of challenge right now to think about, there's so much that is unknown and uncertain. But I remind myself that this work is always upstream, and it has always been about hope and about dignity and about love and equality. And that is, I think, what has always animated me in the work that I've done as a civil rights lawyer.
There are people out there who have reported to the Justice Department and elsewhere that they feel very vulnerable right now over the last few weeks or so. What kind of message are you sending to them at the Justice Department, and what remains even after this administration goes?
Well, so, one thing that I want to point out, and I just think of transgender kids right now. I don't know how many of you had a chance to read the Washington Post article about parents of transgender youth today, and I would really urge you. It's written by Emma Brown. A really powerful story about parents who have had children who are transgender and who, one of whom has a 4-year-old who, has a transgender child who at 4 years old tried to undo her seatbelt, unlock the door while her car was driving down a highway because of the intense anguish she was feeling around her gender identity, really threatening to kill herself. And you read these stories, and it's hard not to get really emotional about them. And these are struggles that existed before 3 weeks ago. They're struggles that are going to exist in 3 months, in 3 years, and when I look at the career lawyers in the Civil Rights Division who are going to outlive and outlast me at the Civil Rights Division, and I understand the work that they are doing every day against all odds, oftentimes in communities where there is a degree of hostility to the work or a lack of understanding about it, they are motivated and guided by their hope and values, and they need to be doing what they're doing because, as I said, this work is never easy in any circumstance. And if people are feeling more so that way now, in some ways, the work of civil rights lawyering could not be more important than it is now as well.
Let's remind some of the folks in the audience, in case they weren't familiar, with some of the big things you have done using the tools at your disposal in the Civil Rights Division, filing statements of interest on behalf of transgender prison inmates and others, doing training, diversity training for law enforcement to teach them how to be more sensitive to transgender victims of crime. What else?
Yeah, there's a lot. There's the high-profile work like HB2 that's gotten more attention, but we have been doing a lot of work through our policing consent decrees around the country on ensuring that interactions with LGBT communities is fair and promotes de-escalation and understanding. There's work that we've been doing in the employment arena to ensure that LGBT employees have the full rights that they deserve under our federal civil rights statutes. We've been doing a lot of hate crimes prosecutions. Last week, we celebrated the 7th anniversary of the Matthew Shepard and James Byrd Jr. Hate Crimes Prevention Act, which added sexual orientation to the list of protected categories. And we have had to, unfortunately, prosecute a number of hate crimes against the LGBT community in the last several years. But it's really vital work, and it's work that needs to continue. And then in the schools arena, where the issue of bullying in schools and bullying of LGBT kids has been something that has both been more documented, though there are a lot of jurisdictions that aren't even recording this information in a way that they should. But kids need to be protected in schools, and schools need to be climates of safety and learning, and we've seen too many places where LGBT kids have been bullied and really experienced incredible harassment and sometimes even violence in schools for being who they are. And that's work that that's deeply important to this Justice Department and has been a really important part of our legacy.
Aside from schools, what about LGBT people and Q people in institutional settings? So, for instance, this administration has tried to revitalize compliance with the Prison Rape Elimination Act, among other things.
Yeah, there was a couple of years ago, we filed a statement of interest on behalf of Ashley Diamond in the Georgia Department of Corrections, making what was kind of one would think was kind of a simple and common sense argument that when a person who has gender dysphoria that Ashley Diamond did is denied medical access and treatment and care, that violates the Eighth Amendment. Ashley Diamond had alleged in her pleadings that she had been brutalized and sexually assaulted numerous times while in prison. She had been denied her hormone therapy, was being held in a male facility. And it was really important for us to file that statement of interest and assert what the Eighth Amendment demands. She ultimately was released, and we prevailed in the litigation. But it was a long and hard fought effort. And in the meanwhile, Ashley Diamond and others like her have been for too long suffering in correctional institutions. And without that kind of oversight, and there was a lot of private litigation involved too, I will just say that for all of the kind of efforts that we have made and the victories that we have secured in the last several years, there is so much work to be done in all of these settings and institutions. It's unfinished business, and it is terribly important because people's lives are literally depending on it.
And in terms of unfinished business, you have 60 days left to make a difference or more. What do you expect to get out the door?
Bye, guys. So thanks for reminding me. I didn't quite have that calendar down until last week. Carrie, you know this. I have been a civil rights lawyer my whole life. I started at the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. I went on to the American Civil Liberties Union, and somehow President Obama gave me the honor of my lifetime to serve at the helm of the Civil Rights Division at a time where I think, and I don't think any of you would deny this, the civil rights have really been front and center for the country on a host of race and gender identity and sexual orientation and so many issues. I have a limited time, it's true, and we are going whole hog, and there's no slowing down in the next 60 days. But look, the work that I get to talk about and celebrate here today is being done by career attorneys at the Civil Rights Division, and there's a lot of folks out there in the world, advocates and activists, many of you that have been for a very long time doing this work and pushing these issues front and center and demanding that we as a country respond to and react and ensure people's dignity in a way that has been different than we have been. And the Justice Department's role in that has been, it's been one piece of that, but this is a movement in this country. And no matter what, there is no turning back the transformation that has occurred in this country on these issues, no matter what happens in the future. And I take the long view on this. I think as a civil rights lawyer, I have to. Sometimes you take 2 steps forward, you take 1 step back. Sometimes you encounter, justice just is never static. We always have to be vigilant. We always have to be mindful of what the next barrier is, what the next rights are that we need to vindicate. And for me, this is my life's work. I am going to do this work for the rest of my life, wherever I may be able to do it. And I am so gratified that there are people in the division and that there are people outside that have been helping to really build this movement for equal dignity and equal justice around the country on these issues.
A note of hope. I'm going to open this up to audience questions in just one moment. There are people around with mics, but before I do that, Anita, I think this audience is going to be hearing from Gavin Grimm later. Gavin's case continues at the highest court in the country, so that's something for everyone to look forward to in the months to come.
And you all know this, but when Gavin comes here, he deserves the biggest round of applause that any of us could possibly give him. I mean, the courage that it takes to stand up. It's one thing for us and our lawyers, and a few of them are in the audience today, to stand up for people like Gavin, but for Gavin to do what he is doing, it is not an easy thing. It is not an easy thing, even if you kind of see his name in a caption in the United States Supreme Court. It has taken real courage for him to be in his community and have the support that he does, but also the intense scrutiny and backlash that he is also facing. And I'm always reminded of the sacrifice that the plaintiffs make and our clients make to actually give real life to the Constitution and to its meaning, and that is exactly what Gavin Grimm is doing.
Thank you.
So my name is Eddie Eiches, and in real life, I am been president of a federal worker union. And what I'm concerned about is what took place when W was W was elected, and the Civil Rights Division, appointed by the Supreme Court, faux pas. But the whole civil rights, a lot of the career people, the political people know they're going to leave, but the career people basically were so viciously attacked, and the values that Civil Rights Division pursued during the beginning of the W administration were so outrageous that so many left. And I'm wondering what you think will happen post Mr. Trump's appointment of probably somebody who's anti-civil rights to succeed you.
I think right now there's a lot of uncertainty, to say the least. There's anxiety, and you think uncertainty produces anxiety and fear. And I can't say what it will happen. What I have been telling the career lawyers and the men and women who are so incredibly mission-driven and in the work that they are doing is to not give in to fear and anxiety and to wait to see what happens. There has always been, in every administration, core aspects of federal civil rights work that, frankly, only the Civil Rights Division can do in this country. There are statutes that Congress has enacted that only the Civil Rights Division can enforce. And there are communities and individuals that are relying on the work of those career lawyers to do that. And these are men and women who are used to, as I said, working upstream. Now, I also can't lie. I don't know what all is going to happen. And my hope is that all of us that are, I will eventually be joining the private sector doing civil rights work, that there is an awareness and a sensitivity to the importance of the Civil Rights Division's work, and that folks will be paying attention to what happens.
Hi, thank you so much for being here. I'm wondering if you could speak to the logistics associated with cases that have been granted cert by the Supreme Court, for which the United States government was presumably going to submit an amicus brief, but now might be heard after January 20th. So I'm obviously thinking about Gigi, but also other civil rights cases like Andrew F. that may or may not come before January 20th.
I know it's unsatisfying. It's unsatisfying to me. I can't assume the worst. I need to proceed. Right now, we are in Attorney General Loretta Lynch is the Attorney General until the last day before inauguration. I guess that's January 19th. And so we are proceeding apace with our business as usual, enforcing the positions that we have taken. And beyond that, I don't know, and I can't say, again, I can't lie, but I also don't want to assume anything, because I think that there's so much that we don't know, and I don't even know who's going to be the head of the DOJ transition team at this point. And so what I do know is I know the position of the United States in our litigation on these issues right now, and that's the position we're enforcing.
Hi, my name is Joyce Jones, and I'm here with myself. One question that I do have about the Justice Civil Rights Department is many times when we're discussing LGBTQ issues, we cross-cut into issues of access to health or to medical support. How does the Justice Department sort of bridge the tension between access to health, the protection of civil rights, and then also sometimes the enforcement of the law with respect to behaviors that are considered illegal, like drug taking or prostitution or something like this?
So I want to make sure that I understand your question. We do a lot of work with the Department of Health, with HHS, in order to ensure that there's equal access to health and human services. We also enforce, as I said, all the federal civil rights laws and the Constitution and the work that we do. And there is always a very vigorous debate inside the Justice Department. It's a complex institution with a lot of different equities. But there's a lot of vigorous debate, and I would say not just within the Justice Department, but with other agencies that have equities in the work that we're doing, and in articulating and helping us define what our position will be on things like access to healthcare, on issues, factual scenarios that may arise that are very specific, whether it's around, as you said, prostitution and other issues. I think that the important thing is that the vigorous debate actually happens, and that there are people who are representing all different sides of that viewpoint, and that we are able to come to an informed position and discussion based on where the facts and the law are taking us in any given situation. It's hard to speak about it generally, but I think that we've been able to really do as much as we have the last several years in the Civil Rights Division, because there has been such a vigorous and animated discussion among all of the federal agencies around the enforcement of civil rights laws, and that's been a really important part of the progress that we've made around the country.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Vanita.
Thank you.